Hey, it's Fit Gear Hunter here in my home gym of CrossFit Homeward in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. If you're ever in the area, please drop in and visit. Up for the initial review of the TicWatch Pro 3. So I've gotten a lot of requests and a lot of messages about the need to review and test this device versus some of the other AMOLEDs on the market, as well as some of the other devices that are out there in the sports industry. So I'm actually going to be doing a big release of a lot of AMOLED watch comparisons. So not focused as much on the sports tracking aspects, but on the general or broader tracking aspects or just the general watch benefits of a lot of the AMOLED watches on the market soon. But right now we're looking at the TicWatch Pro 3. Again, this YouTube channel, Fit Gear Hunter, as well as the website fitgearhunter.com, is dedicated to tracking and testing devices specifically for the purpose of CrossFit or high intensity interval training versus all the other running and biking review sites you'll find out there. So please, if you like the review, give it a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing for upcoming content. We've got a number of reviews on the way. So with the TicWatch Pro 3, what are the basic dimensions? I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of the watch. We're going to look at a hands-on of the watch, a hands-on of the app, and then we're going to come back together for a summary of my initial thoughts. And then in about 2 weeks, I'll give you the full in-depth review with optical heart rate detailed analysis. So it's 47.7 millimeters wide, so it's a little bit on the broader side. It's 13.6 millimeters thick, but it's only 61 grams, and that's because it's got an aluminum feeling body. I don't know if it's aluminum or stainless, but it feels a lot like aluminum. The rubber band is kind of interesting, and we'll look at a close-up, but it looks like a leather texture, but it is a rubber. I don't like that it's a little bit stiff. But 47 millimeters, the biggest thing about this is the screen is 1.39 inches across, which is a comparison to like the Huawei GT2, as well as the Honor Magic Watch 2, as well as the Samsung Galaxy Watch 3, as well as, you know, a number of the Suunto 7, a number of the watches that are out there, and those are all going to be in that primary comparison review of AMOLED watches on the market now. It has a dual layer screen, so one thing that's interesting about this versus some of the others, and it uses Wear OS. Obviously, it's got Google Wear OS as the operating system, which a number of watches are using, and I'm going to give into the details as far as what I think of this sort of version or expanded version of Wear OS in the end here, but it uses a second layered screen so you can have an always off. I don't have it set because I personally, and I'll share, I don't like it, but we'll look at it in hands-on. It just gives you an LCD screen, and you can do a wrist raise to come back to AMOLED, or you can do a button press or a touch to come back to the AMOLED, and it conserves power that way. You also will, with the LCD display, you can get a backlight to come up as well if you just want to have a backlight of that dimmer, more muted Casio type watch. It can do always on, so that's the biggest thing. It's got dedicated app alongside Wear OS, so you connect it like you would Wear OS, and it's got a Mobvoi app, which was previously TicWatch app. And the other big thing about this AMOLED is it uses a Snapdragon 4100 processor, which is the latest rendition versus the 3100 on a lot of the devices 6 months ago and older, but it gets better battery life. So they promote 3 days, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but overall, the feel, the weight, you know, my favorite so far in the feel and weight and size is in the Suunto 7. I really do like how this feels so far. It's lighter than the 7, doesn't have the stainless feel, but it does have an aluminum body. So let's get into the details. A couple of things about it, you know, about what the features on it. So it does do stress tracking, it does do pulse ox, which not a lot of the Wear OS do. It will continue just to monitor health and benefits and details there. But it so it has the standard suite of Google Fit and Google Wellness types apps in the Wear OS, but it's got a bunch of Tic-based apps in the Wear OS that gives a lot more health features and analysis. So let's get into a hands-on, then come back together, look at the app, and then come back together for a review. Thanks so much.
Okay, so what do we see with the TicWatch Pro 3? You obviously have 47 millimeters across and 13.6 millimeters thick. So that's, you know, that's a little bit on the thicker side for the AMOLED watches just in the industry right now. Obviously, you see it's got the heart rate sensor in the back as well as the pulse ox sensor. And quick release, these are 22 millimeter lugs, and it's, you know, the band is a rubber band that has this sort of stitched weaving so that it looks or feels, or maybe it looks more like leather, but it definitely is rubber. So obviously, you know, it's a 1.39 inch screen across, and it is an AMOLED screen that has a really good bright backlight. And the bigger thing is that it's got a second screen within it, that if you turn off the always on screen and you give it a second, it will go to the LCD. And or we can just put our hand over it, and there it is. So you can see it slightly. It does have a backlight, which you can't quite see in the dark, but there it is. So you can see it does have a backlight. You actually have to have wrist raise gesture turned off for the backlight for the LCD to come on. If you have wrist raise gesture turned on, then it's going to go back to AMOLED, and you can obviously go back to AMOLED with just a single press as well. So I have found that the battery is not significantly changed by just using the LCD screen. So I don't tend to use it. I actually just like the regular screens. You know, you have a lot of different watch faces that you can choose from. You know, there's a couple of really neat ones you can download, but overall, I like the simplicity of the watch. I like the exterior of the bezel. I feel like it does have a protective lip to it, and you have a speaker and you have a microphone on that side. You have 2-button control. It does feel like it's an all aluminum casing. It's only 61 grams heavy, so that's actually not bad at all. And the battery life is going a lot better than in other AMOLED watches that I've tested. So let's look at it just across the spectrum, just for what it looks like and the basic app functions. So you push on the top button and you get your apps. It is a 2 app per line, layout, and you can see it's visually really bright. One thing you can't quite see is that there's a slight haze. I mean, you could almost feel it, although it's not significantly pronounced because the LCD screen is sort of inlaid within it. But within the apps, you have it like this. You can also see that if you were trying to compare it to how it looks for a typical Google Wear OS, you would basically see normally this, and a lot of the Google Wear OS watches have maybe like a scroll function, but they're all in a single line format. That's the Fossil Gen 5. But here, you get basically 2 lines, and you get a lot of these tick sleep, tick exercise, tick pulse, tick breathe. Tick Zen is the meditation. So, when you look at the basic exercises you can choose from, the list is pretty simple, and there's not a lot you can add to it, or not a significant amount of changes you can bring about. Sorry about the backlight, or like the glare off the other things. So the sleep app, actually it's really neat because, obviously gives you the summary. 2:30 is my goal, and that's what I slept today, and that's what gives the weekly average. You can tap into it, and it really does give you a lot of details. The amount of time awake, REM, light, and deep. So all of the primary stages, the time you took to fall asleep, and then your heart rate throughout sleep, and then your blood oxygen. So it does an incredibly good job of tying in blood oxygen during sleep alongside the sleep analysis. You get a lot of different details. So I really have liked it. I don't like that it doesn't give you a score. It just gives you an efficiency. So if you slept 4 hours, but you were really asleep the whole time, you get a higher efficiency, but that doesn't mean you're at all prepared for the day. But the sleep is very helpful. Then the Tick Zen is the stress tracking. And you can see that it'll take it basically in 30-minute increments. You'll see little shots over time, or stress distributions, for if you have a high stress, medium stress. It'll just give you an average of your stress level throughout the week, so you can sort of monitor and track your own, have awareness around your stress levels. I have all the settings turned on. So with the battery analysis we'll give at the end, all of everything I can track. If I can turn a sensor on, then I'm going to turn it on. So you can see that it tracked it throughout the night. It obviously does it once an hour for blood oxygen tracking, and it's really mostly just working at night when I'm super still. Otherwise, it really just doesn't pick it up. So it picked it up off my finger just now, which is impressive. But you have voice memos, another neat little function, calculator, stopwatch, all the basic stuff. The weather app, it's really actually pretty simple. You don't get an by the hour weather, so it just a super simple summary of the day. And then you have all the traditional Wear OS functions down below. So it's nice that there's this tick focused aspects. You can scroll in, and this is one thing that's really interesting about the watch is you get a lot of little details. So high intensity minutes put in, heart rate zones, oxygen saturation. You can dive into a bunch of charts. This is the tick health. So exercise goal achieved. I don't know if I can tick, if I can click into that. Everything's tick with this, so it's, gets in your brain. But you do have just, all of these basic functions with, within this. And then you have basic widget functions. So within the Wear OS, you only can use 5 basic widgets to the right. This is that same tick health, so we won't look at that any further. This is actually a summary of your fitness throughout the week, so your cumulative exercises. So let's just take a look at what one exercise this is this morning, what it looks like on the watch after you're done. So what data do you really get? Not much at all. You get your average beats per minute, which is terrible that it said 90. I mean, it was mostly lifting, so it was 5 sets of 5 deadlifts, 6 sets of 3 push presses, and then it was an 8-minute, blast workout AMRAP with an inclining rep scheme of burpees over the dumbbell and then dumbbell single arm snatches. So it had 90. That is way off. But that is all the details you get. So you don't get a lot of details, but this is also how you would track your progress, so to speak, or you don't have much of a workout analysis, but you do have, look, you worked out today. So this is how it tracks your volume. So tragically, there's just not a lot of volume tracking here. This is just sort of a generic outdoor walk. You don't get a pretty map, but you do get a lot of stats if that's of interest to you for working out. But for mostly, and I just chose the freestyle as the main workout. I'm going to try to use the Adidas Fantastic or Runtastic or whatever, because you can connect to a chest strap after I get done with the optical heart rate analysis. But that's it for the workout log for what you see when you go into a workout after you get done. You can just change these widgets. I do like the widgets. I think this is actually one of my favorite aspects is just you can get a quick shot of article summaries. It usually loads faster, and the Snapdragon 4100 processor is loading a lot more quickly and a lot more smoothly than it was when I tested, like the Fossil Gen 5. So you can change the widgets. So the widgets are pretty good. When you get into the basic function, obviously you have the Google Assistant, you have some basic snapshots. I like that it has like quick snapshots there. And then down below you got your, see, it's not connected. One of the things I'm having a really hard time with is the connection staying constant and the ability to reconnect easily. So I'll click that and it won't work, and I'll turn off Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and I'll turn it back on, or I'll reset the watch, and I just am having problems with the connectivity. So that is actually a reoccurring problem. So hopefully that'll update in the firmware. You have your basic quick draw settings here. Let's turn that off. So widgets to the right, Google Assistant to the left. Notifications. I love how the notifications look on the Wear OS platform. I love how they come in. I love the text style. I love the clarity in the screen. But overall, that's the overall layout. When you go into a workout, I will say it is like super duper bland. And then I found it like it's hard to figure out how to stop it, So it's like you go and you get beats per minute, and you can scroll. There's the stop button. But you can just scroll through super basic information, how many calories and beats per minute, calories, beats per minute. And then this is for like your rounds. So you could track a new pause set 1, and it will go to different rounds. And then I guess you always just do it that way. But for some reason, I had a hard time figuring it out when I got done. So there's the summary of the workout like we just saw, but super, super bland in what you get in the workout. So let's look at the app, see how that basically functions, and then come back together for a second. Okay, so this is the main landing page for Wear OS. Obviously, this is going to be, uniform for all the Wear OS devices, and you have the basic settings page. So this is the similar approach that Samsung has with like the Samsung Watch settings, and then you also have Samsung Health and Apple Watch settings, and then you also have Apple Health. So this is the basic page, but then you go into the Mobvoi app, and this is the sort of the landing. See up at the top underneath the TicWatch Pro 3, it says connected, and then it's loading my battery time. I will often have it connected in here where you see at the top it says connected, and then in here it says disconnected or it's not connected, or I shut the app down, or I turn off the Bluetooth and turn it back on. So that's super frustrating, but you go into it and this is the basic loading zone. I do like, compared to some of the other sort of like the Amazfit or the Huawei, I do like that they have a pretty well built out app. And I feel like it functions well. It actually has a lot of primary content to it. So let's look at the sleep, just as a function. Obviously, I've tested a lot of different AMOLED type devices. The Amazfit is sort of neutral. Samsung is somewhat neutral in the sleep analysis. Apple is basically non-existent from the native sleep analysis. And Huawei Health, the Huawei actually gives you a pretty in-depth, sleep analysis. I can't speak to the accuracy of everything, but I do like that they give you the 4 stages of sleep. They track your heart rate throughout the sleep. They give you your resting, your lowest heart rate, and then they do tie in pulse ox to your sleep, which I have not found to be a use. Other devices have not used pulse ox correctly, in my opinion. So you can see just all the basic functions. The heart rate. You can dive into this. Blood oxygen. It's basically trying to take a reading once an hour, which I like that it's just at least doing it automated instead of spot checking like you have to do with a lot of others. There's the high intensity exercise. That's the way you can track your load over time. And if it was tracking noise, I would be able to turn on. I could be able to see if my noise decibels. So let's look at what a workout looks like when you get done with it. So again, this was the workout from today. I accidentally pushed. If you look at the bottom, completed 1 set. If you hit that play pause button, it'll start another set. It's another session if you were doing a lifting exercise. But you don't get many stats. So you obviously get duration, calories, and your beats per minute. And unfortunately, I'm clicking on the heart rate graph. I'm not getting any details. I don't get the zones. So you can see the dotted line zones, and it shows you like the level of the heart rate for each of those dedicated zones, but you can't click into anything. You don't get a heart rate zone map, and the heart rate has been tragically or terribly off. It does, so like if you look at the workout on a specific chest strap tracking device, you can see that there was, deadlift repetitions, it was basically 5 sets of 5 and then 6 sets of 3 on a push press. So you see the heart rate spike there, and then it was an 8-minute AMRAP on the tail. And you can see the heart rate jump up, and the average is 104. So it wasn't like a high average heart rate. But here it says the average was 90, and it clocked it at 60 beats per minute for basically what looks like maybe 4 minutes. Whereas it was, a longer session at time, and you can see the heart rate zones on a normal sports tracking watch. So that's what you get when you look at the app afterwards. So I'm going to continue to track the optical heart rate sensor for accuracy in a CrossFit or high intensity interval training workout, but it's not going great so far. But you do get a nice summary of all your primary health stats, and then you basically go back for more generic information if you wanted to click into the watch face center or something like that. This is really all you come to, at least in my opinion, for the Mob Void. So this is how stress looks. It does give you a stress distribution. It tries to take a reading once every 30 minutes. It doesn't always come through. Samsung did a better job at showing your stress graph over time, and then Garmin is crushing everybody for tracking heart rate variability or stress levels over time and compiling that into a body battery that's useful information. So that is the app. Let's come back together.
Okay, so what did I like and what did I not like? Just to get really straight to it, the connectivity issues were a little bit of a problem. It couldn't sync. I would have synced 3 or 4 watches with an upload of my activity after the workout, and it would not have connected it, and I'd have to power off Bluetooth or power off the phone or restart the watch. So that's kind of a problem. The other thing I didn't like was that the LCD that is that second layer screen that does give you that benefit of some longer battery life, and we'll talk about that in a second. It gives you sort of a haze. You have an LCD haze, whereas just a crisp, clear screen with just the plain AMOLED. I had slight issue with the alarm. So if you obviously turn it off, you have LCD screen, the alarm comes on, you don't get the pretty screen that gives you just the button to turn off the alarm in the morning. And so far, obviously lackluster heart rate accuracy. So I do like that it's following the trend of a Metcon or a lifting session or a workout, but it's definitely not keeping up the peak and the height of the workout so far. So I'm going to do continue to do a full in-depth analysis on that. I Definitely don't like that it doesn't have workout analysis, and it is a super slow charger. It just, I mean, well, it shouldn't say super slow, but it takes a while to charge, which I just wish it was a faster charge if it's only a battery life of what they're proposing to be 3 days. I do like the things that I do like that there's extra apps, and the tick-based apps are all much more expansive and detailed than the general Wear OS apps. I do like that it has stress tracking, and it'll check for that once every 30 minutes, or pulse ox, your oxygen level tracking once every hour, and it'll catch it sometimes in sleep. I do like the sleep detail. I do like all of the detail in the screens, and you can dive into different subsets, and the sleep detail on the watch itself is pretty great. I like that it has great graphics and add-ons. It just, gives you a lot of charts built into the watch, which is really impressive. And even like the charging graphic, has a little graphic to it. But the app itself, so the Mobvoi app is better than some of the other off-brand apps, and I would say off-brand a little bit. So it's like Samsung and Apple, which are like the primary AMOLED manufacturers, and then you have Huawei, Honor, Amazfit, and TicWatch Pro, or TicWatch, and Mobvoi. And so of those that are developing their own apps, I feel like this is actually a pretty good app. But I do like that with the LCD, you do get a backlight if you want to use that version as your non-always-on version. But some of the things that that I found to be interesting about the battery life. So with just the LCD, so the LCD on, and it's not, wrist to raise just brings the LCD backlight on, not the full AMOLED on. You have to touch the screen or press a button to turn the AMOLED version on. I was getting about 40% drain per day. That would translate to 2.5 day battery life. But with always on, where it just goes AMOLED light, and then turning off the screen altogether, going to that theater mode, at night I was getting about 2.25 days, so about 44% of a burn per day. And so I just feel like, well, why would I ever go to the LCD? If this battery life is almost enough to get 2.25 days versus 2.5 days, but I get the big pretty screen of the AMOLED all day long, I'm gonna go with that every day, all day. So that's the update right now. I do think that for the value and for the features and benefits and how they're incorporating some of the health-based aspects, as well as the screen technology, the size, and the overall build quality, it just doesn't feel like a flimsy watch. I'm really liking the TicWatch Pro 3 so far in my review. So give me some comments if you have anything to add, and stay tuned for the full review as well as that full comparison AMOLED watch competition to come out in the coming days. Fit Gear Hunter, thanks so much for watching.